Hello, and welcome to the second webinar in the 2020 Virtual Summer Learning Series for secondary mathematics educators from the Indiana Department of Education. My name is Robin Conti, and I am the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning at IDOE. This slide deck is available for you on the Mathematics Standards page at doe.in.gov/standards/mathematics under the Professional Learning button. Sixth grade teachers can benefit from both elementary and secondary, depending on how your school district is set up at the middle level. Today, we will explore an instructional routine introduced to the math world in 2010 by edu celebrity Dan Meyer, 3-act tasks. Throughout the virtual summer series, we have two purposes. First, we want to explore high-quality math resources that are aligned to the Indiana academic standards to aid in improving teaching and learning of mathematics for all students. What is important to note here is that high quality does not equal complex. Our goal is to explore resources and routines that do not require a heavy lift for educators to implement. Second, we hope that you will discover for the first time or learn ways to refine your current understanding of ways to integrate the specific resource into your instructional routines, both virtually and in person. We've brought our digital learning specialist on to help navigate the remote learning and virtual opportunities. A 3-act task is exactly what it sounds like. It is a task broken into 3 distinct steps. In Act 1, an engaging and perplexing problem is presented. In Act 2, the aim is to help students understand math. And finally, in Step 3, students are invited to analyze and extend their thinking. Dan Meyer is an educator and math advocate who currently is the Chief Academic Officer for Desmos. He is the creator of 3-act tasks and mostly focused on secondary tasks. Graham Fletcher is an educator and math advocate for best practices in elementary mathematics. He has created many 3-act tasks for the elementary level. The challenge with a 3-act task is for teachers to do what Dan Meyer suggests, and that is to be less helpful. What does it mean to be less helpful? It means allowing students to generate their own questions before telling them yours. It means giving students time to think about the information they would need to know to attempt the task before you tell them what they need. It means allowing students to act on their natural curiosities and to allow them to notice and wonder about the task and their world. It is about allowing students to think for themselves before you think for them. In the notes of this slide, there's a video titled "Ever Wonder What They'd Notice" by Ann Federer, who does an amazing job of conveying how to spark curiosity in your students through tasks like these. It is a must watch. In order to truly appreciate the task, we will walk through one together. I encourage you to pause this webinar periodically to allow yourself to engage in the process. In Act 1, we will set up student curiosity by sharing a scenario. You can begin by saying, "I'm going to show you something I came across and found interesting," or simply, "Watch this." Show the video for your students. It is okay to show the video multiple times if the students request it.
Maybe we gotta leave 20 minutes.
When the video has ended, ask your students, "What do you notice?" or "What do you wonder?" Or, "What are the first questions that come to mind?" Allow students to share observations and questions with the partner first, then with the class. Students will have ownership of the questions because they posed them. Ann Federer once said that students don't care about our questions, they care about theirs. All students have ideas about every math problem. She goes on to say that students can do an awful lot of math if they just explore the questions that they asked. Leave no students out of the questioning process. Every student should have access to the scenario. Our goal is to remove language or mathematical barriers by using a video to enter into the mathematics. We want to lower the floor so that all students can engage in the conversation. The particular question for this task was, will she have enough time? I encourage you to record student questions on chart paper or digitally, making them visible to the class. You could even rank them by popularity. Determine which questions will be immediately pursued by the class. If you have a particular question in mind, such as the one corresponding to this task, and it isn't posed by students, you may have to do some skillful prompting to orient their question to serve the mathematical end. However, a good video should naturally lead the question that you hope they'll ask. If the question does not require a numeric response, such as, will she have enough time? Make it. See how I took a yes or no question and tweaked it. I encourage you to ask for estimated answers in response to the question. Ask first for best estimates. Ask for estimates which are too high and too low. Students are now defining and defending parameters for making sense of answers to come. Finally, ask students to record their actual estimate for future reference. This again creates ownership in their original estimate. What happens if students ask questions that are curious but not mathematical? Over time, students will become accustomed to the routine of 3-act tasks and come to appreciate that there are certain kinds of mathematically answerable questions, most often related to quantity or measurement. After solving the main question, if there are other questions that have been generated by students, it is important to allow students to investigate these as well. Investigating these additional questions validates students' ideas and questions and builds a trusting, collaborative learning relationship between students and the teacher. Act 2 is the information gathering stage. Here, students consider the information they have been given, determine the additional information and tools they believe necessary to continue down a solution path, and then draw on their current mathematical knowledge and understanding to answer the big question from Act 1. During Act 2, ask students, what information do you need to answer our main question? Allow time for students to think of the important information they will need to answer their questions. Ask, what mathematical tools do you already have at your disposal, or which would be useful in answering the question? A good practice is to have an area in your room with various tools that students always have access to. This helps strengthen Process Standard 5, which states in part, mathematically proficient students consider the available tools when solving a mathematical problem. These tools might include paper and pencil, concrete models, a ruler, a protractor, a calculator, a spreadsheet, a computer algebra system, a statistical package, or dynamic geometry software. Once your students have had enough time to explore their wonderings, provide them with the information they will need to continue. In this particular task, an image with information is given along with the video clip containing information. This is where the bulk of the mathematics happens in a 3-act task. The amount of time you need to allow will vary depending on the grade level, placement in the progression of a lesson, or familiarity with prior knowledge needed to engage in the task. I encourage you to pause the video and work through the task here. This stage is the perfect opportunity to observe the mathematical thinking and solution paths chosen of your students. Take mental and physical notes here to help determine differentiation needs upon completion of the task. It is also an opportunity to pose purposeful questions to focus student thinking and not funnel it down a certain path. Simple questions to use could include, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? What would happen if? Are you sure? How do you know? Once you are confident your students have had enough time and space to engage in the task, move on to Act 3, the reveal. Show the answer, which is usually the completion of the video. Give students time to grapple with their solution compared to the reveal.
Baby, we gotta leave in 20 minutes.
Revisit the student estimates. You could discuss who was closest to the actual answer, and even better, who was farthest. What was the thinking in both situations? Has their thinking changed? What made it change? This is also an opportunity to validate student solution paths. Did your students create a table, find the unit rate, try to write an equation, inequality, or expression? What about drawing an actual hand? Which one does the class consider most efficient? Finally, discuss the real-life factors that could have caused the answer to be close, but not exact. For example, I was about 34 seconds off in my solution. I didn't account for the fact that she would have to re-dip the nail polish brush several times, nor did I consider that she may be slower when using her non-dominant hand to paint. That is real life and a wonderful learning opportunity. In the notes section of this slide, you will find a link to a connection sheet. What I love about this document is after the workspace for this particular task is a section titled, What It Might Look Like on a Test. Following that are additional examples, as well as error analysis questions utilizing the same skills intended to be developed during the task. Indiana academic standards will change for every 3-act task, depending on the content it covers. The intention of this task depends on the grade in which it is utilized. As you can see, Indiana academic standards from grades 6, 8, and Algebra 1 could all be addressed. Ultimately, this task leads into writing and solving linear inequalities in one variable. A great resource to help you with planning is the Math Framework. The Math Framework offers a looking back and looking ahead section that shows you the vertical alignment of standards. Utilizing this part of the framework can help you choose tasks that best fit your students' needs and recognize the prior knowledge needed that can be used to build understanding of the grade level target. 3-act tasks in person provides a collaborative experience for students that allows for deep mathematical discourse, diverse and creative thinking, and the ability to critique the reasoning of others. Let's quickly review the stages of a 3-act task as it is intended in an in-person environment. In Act 1, present the situation to meet the learning goal. Ask students, what do you notice and what do you wonder? Have students make estimates. What do you believe too high? What do you believe is too low? What is your best guess? In Act 2, ask students, what do you need to measure, calculate, look up in order to solve? Students are given time and space to collect the data and work through the task. Direct instruction may happen here as needed, in whole group or small group, depending on your observations as groups of students work. Finally, in Act 3, debrief student strategies and solution paths. Reveal the actual solution. Have students reflect on their original estimate. Begin to discuss connections between the math learned and the content covered. Completing a 3-act task virtually is very possible. I have provided a few examples here that you may feel free to use and adapt for your own classroom, or maybe they simply spark a different idea. First, using small group Zoom meetings would most similarly reflect how we walked through the nail polish task together. You could use this method in conjunction with Google Slides. Nearpod is a platform I utilized often in the classroom. If you click on the link, you will be given access to my activity in which you can add to your own personal library and edit as appropriate. It is an instructional platform that merges formative assessment and dynamic media for collaborative learning experiences. It is easy to create lessons from scratch, and there is even an option to drag and drop existing PowerPoints or slide decks to Nearpod and convert them to dynamic slides. The free access is more than enough, but there are features behind a paywall. For example, the live view is available for free. This is where you, the teacher, control the pace of the slides. There is also a student-paced view where students can access the activity at any time with a code and progress at their own pace. Another feature behind the paywall is a library of high-quality pre-made lessons extending from elementary school through calculus. I'm going to click on the live lesson to give you a preview of what a Nearpod lesson would look like. Students would simply enter in this code into nearpod.com or in the home screen of the app. On slide 1, students would watch the video and answer the question. What are the first questions that come to mind after watching the video? Students will have an option here to type in an answer. Once I have looked at all of my students' answers and I feel confident that we can move on, I click the blue arrow on the right side and every student's screen on their individual device would move to the next slide. They can see the entire question on their screen, although from a teacher view, you will not. This screen says, we will answer the following question today. How long do you think it will take her to paint and dry her nails? This is the slide in which they make their guesses. They may choose to type their answer in, or they may choose to simply write with their stylus. What information do you need to answer the question? They would be able to type their answer in, and I could see them as they populate throughout the class or during the e-learning. I embedded the video differently in this slide to show you that there are options. If you are doing a live view with your students, you may choose to embed the video so that only your device shows the video and you can AirPlay that for the entire class. Or if your students use headphones, you may have it pushed out to all of their individual devices so that they could listen to it as they get to the video. The following slide is using the information, determine if she will be on time, and they will answer the question, how long does it take to paint and dry her nails? One of the things my students like to do in my own classroom was to do their work on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, take a picture and upload their picture as their answer. Or they may simply write directly on the slide and submit it that way. I made a slide for the reveal where they could answer how close they were to the actual answer. And why do you think you were over, under, or exactly? I then added the what it might look like on a test. I also extended that question for my students and said, can you try to use a different method to solve the problem? And also, what is the longest amount of time she can spend per nail and still be on time? And finally, I added the last question that takes a similar concept with a different scenario. ClassKick is another platform I love for its ease of use. It is an app and web-based instructional tool that allows you, the teacher, to see student work in real time and support with just-in-time feedback. Again, if you click on the link, you will be taken to my pre-made nail polish task that you may add to your personal library and edit as needed. The Google Slide link will take you to a task that is different from the nail polish task, but is a great example of how you can use Pear Deck with a 3-act task. Another great option to use is Desmos. There are already many 3-act tasks created and ready for use in Desmos. One could argue that each and every process standard is embedded in a 3-act task, but there are some standout options. Process Standard 1, make sense of problems and persevere to solve them. Mathematically proficient students analyze given constraints, relationships, and goals. They continually ask themselves, does this make sense and is my answer reasonable? And Process Standard 4, mathematical modeling is used to interpret real-world situations in mathematical formats. In elementary school, this could be as simple as writing an equation to represent a contextualized problem. But in high school, modeling requires more than just a simple equation. 3-act tasks begin to ensure our students are engaged in modeling by asking students to first identify the problem or pose a question. Second, make an estimate. And third, identify the variables needed to solve and answer the problem or question posed. Just like the process standards, one could argue all of the NCTM 8 effective teaching practices are embedded within a 3-act task. To make math achievement a reality for all students, NCTM suggests we need to move from pockets of excellence to systemic excellence by providing math education that supports the learning of all students at the highest level possible. High-quality resources like 3-act tasks helps educators do just that. The 8 effective teaching practices are a call to action that tasks all stakeholders with the role of recognizing the need for mathematics education that is research-based and data-driven, held together by the belief that developing mathematical understanding and mathematical confidence in our students is the key to the obstacles we face. Each school year brings unique challenges. The 2020-2021 school year will be no different. It is imperative that we focus on the acceleration of learning for our students, which is loosely defined by teaching and learning more than 1 year's amount of content in 1 year. In order to do that, we must make a commitment to teach grade level content while strategically and intentionally drawing and reviewing prior content. In the notes of this slide, there is a great resource from the New Teacher Project titled the Learning Acceleration Guide. This guide offers meaningful support and research surrounding learning acceleration. A 3-act task will support learning acceleration 3 ways. First, it offers tasks that draw upon content from multiple grade levels. Again, the math framework is a great resource to guide your planning. 3-act tasks allow for just-in-time teaching, which actively engages students in learning new material and gives you information on students' existing knowledge before teaching on the topic begins. Tasks are opened up, which allows for multiple ways to enter the task as well as multiple solution strategies. This engages students and honors their understanding at their current level. Opening up tasks also allows for deeper and more meaningful classroom conversation. When there is not one solution path, and sometimes even solution, diverse thinking is valued and helps to move math from black and white to multifaceted. Finally, they allow us to work within our student zone of proximal development. Doing so ensures each student in the class has the opportunity to make a meaningful contribution to the class community of learners. The zone of proximal development is described by NCTM as the distance between the actual development level as determined by independent problem solving and the level of potential development through problem solving under adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. This concept leads into differentiation opportunities. Dan Meyer does a great job in the video linked in the notes of this slide explaining how traditional math textbook problems rob students from thinking. In the video, titled Math Class Needs a Makeover, he shows you how to take a typical textbook problem and turn it into a 3-act task. Or at the very least, how to take a typical textbook problem and be less helpful. So why 3-act tasks? We are trying to mathematize our students' world. We're best able to do that when we use situations that are relevant, engaging, and perplexing. 3-act tasks help eliminate that troubling reality that exists in far too many students. 3-act tasks spark curiosity. Sometimes we can be tricked into thinking our students will enjoy a problem because it involved the real world or has a video to watch. These are misconceptions. Think about how the task will make a student curious to engage and solve the problem. 3-act tasks create anticipation. We want to give our students just enough information to capture their attention and then slowly build on the storyline to keep that attention. Students feel empowered because 3-act tasks are accessible. Keep the questioning open, because asking for math-related questions out of the gate will only shut some students down. These tasks promote student thinking. A common misconception is that students must understand steps to a problem before engaging with it. The most effective way to promote student thinking is without explicitly teaching the concept. We want students to investigate using their prior knowledge through the inquiry process. Students are making real-world connections. The reveal offers a conclusion to the story and often elicits ideas and discussions about what really happened. This is also a great opportunity to extend the learning and investigate those questions from Act 1 that were left unanswered. The teacher has the opportunity to connect the learning to the content while students are able to intentionally reflect on the mathematical ideas through purposeful practice. So what's next? Do what we expect the students to do. Continue to grow by persevering. Keep trying these and other open problems. Take note of what is working and focus on that. Talk with a colleague or group of your peers. Find a critical friend at your school or a thought partner from a neighboring school or in an online community for educators. Finally, question everything and model that with your students. In the notes of this slide, you will find many resources for 3-act tasks. Copyright gives exclusive rights to the original work. Any work that is copyrighted is owned by a specific person, and you must gain permission to use the work. Educational fair use is an exception. It provided limitations without seeking permission from the copyright. Teaching falls under educational fair use. In its simplest form, you can use work that is copyrighted as long as it is not for profit or commercial use, is suitably appropriate, the work stays intact and original to its use, and its intended use will not affect the copyrighted material's value. This does not discount credit. You should still source and give credit where it is due. For example, this flowchart was adapted with permission from Art Class with LMJ. She created an educational fair use flowchart that I wanted to adapt to support math teachers, so I reached out to her and was given permission by her to adapt and use the resource in this way. But I'm giving her credit by linking the source on my document. Use the flowchart to figure out what path to take when using work from outside sources. Some basic rules of thumb include: if you did not personally create it, assume that it's copyrighted. If your use of the work will result in profit, distribution, or personal gain, you should always get permission first. If the work is not being used outside a class, you are typically safe, but it's always best to have the original resource cited and available. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can scan the QR code by opening your iPhone camera and holding it up to the screen or another QR reader app. You can also click the Here on the slide deck to fill out a short survey. My contact information is also available. Feel free to email me or tweet at me anytime. I'd be happy to help. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication to Indiana students.